The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Helen McMahon, and welcome to the Study Period 2 overview. I hope you're all well. We've got 3 attendees at the moment. We do actually have 6 registered, so I will just hang on a little bit longer, but I just wanted to check what you can actually see on your screen. So I'm doing it all right this end. So if you could just maybe raise your hand or put in a question or a comment if you can actually see the black and green Open Colleges PowerPoint screen. So if you could do that for me, that would be wonderful. David, thank you. I can see you've raised your hand. So it looks like I am actually showing the right screen, which is excellent. So we've got Ace and Sarah as well. So if you wouldn't mind just raising your hand as well, just to confirm. Oh, that's okay, Sarah. I see that you've written yes as to raise your hand. That's excellent. Thank you very much. And Ace, if you could just let me know. So just bear with us a few more minutes, everybody, and we will commence the session very shortly. So we need some hold music, isn't it? Okay, so it's just gone 12 o'clock. I will actually make a start. I'm just going to unmute a couple of people because they're looking as if they cannot hear me. So bear me a second. Ace, I'm just about to unmute you. Ace, can you hear me at all? Hello, Ace? No? David, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Helen.
Excellent. Good to see you again, or hear you anyway.
Yes. Back on deck after a
Sorry?
absence, yeah. I've been back on deck after a personal absence, yes.
Oh, I hope everything's okay.
Everything's fine. But, yeah,
Good.
I'll be back on the wall.
Good. I'm just going to mute you again, David, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Hi, Sarah. You can hear me, can you? Hello, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Excellent. I'm just checking everybody. That's okay. I'm just going to unmute you. So please excuse me. How are you, Sarah? You okay?
Yes, good, thank you. Can you hear me through this?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Excellent. So I'm going to unmute you in a moment, and I'll explain why shortly. Okay. All right, like I said, I will make a start, and I just wanted to have that touch base with people. So as I said earlier, my name's Helen McMahon, and I'm one of the trainer and assessors here at Open Colleges, and I run currently Study Period 1 and part of Study Period 2, hence me being here today. And you've probably seen my name pop up in a lot of other areas as well. So let me just go through some housekeeping rules, because some of you may not have actually attended one of these study period webinar sessions before. So as I just explained, that I will have you actually muted. Please don't take offence to that. It's just that if we have everybody unmuted and everybody tries to talk, it can be quite deafening and we have quite a bit of feedback. So if you would like to ask a question, you'll notice on the dashboard you can type in questions or you can raise your hand. So if you type in a question, it will come up on my panel here and I can see it as we go along, and I will answer that verbally as we go through. If you Sometimes if I feel it's necessary, I might unmute you and we might discuss it as a group. But we'll just see how that goes. If you could just ask those questions through that panel, that would be fantastic. The session is scheduled for an hour, and the idea is to focus a little bit on the course content in terms of setting the scene for you. That's what I'm aiming for at the end of today, is that you can walk away at least with some direction and a clear understanding of what the 2 units are within this study period, and have a real good springboard platform to make a start if you haven't already. If you've already made a start, my aim is that we can answer some of those questions as we go along. So what I will be doing is sharing my screen with you. We're going through some PowerPoints, and there will be times when I'll try and get some interaction as well. So that's why I'll be asking you to answer some questions. I've actually attended a number of webinars myself for different subjects, and I know sometimes maybe it's just me, I just like to have that little bit of interaction. So I'm going to do that today as well. So there will be times that I will share a screen with you, and like I just checked a few moments ago, that you can actually see the black and green Open Colleges PowerPoint. And my aim is that I will share some of the screens in terms of the assessments. Like I said, raise your hand if you've got a question, or just type it into the chat section itself. So let's make a start. Okay, she says, oh, there we go. So what I'm just showing you right now is a bigger picture of the whole Cert 4 and training. You may have seen this before. And basically, just to explain, these first 2 units, if you're sitting with us today, the chances are, and I recognise some of your names, you have probably completed these 2 units, or close to completing, and that's in the study period 1. This purple section, the delivery, that's what we're focusing on today. This is our study period 2, and you'll notice there are 2 units of competencies, and those are the 2 units that we are aiming to get you competent in and signed off on. And I'll go into those units a little bit more in a moment. You then got the assessment unit, so you'll see there's 4 units of competency when you get into study period 3. And then you go on to your electives. But let's today just focus on this purple area. That's what it is that I want to work on today. So objectives. Look, at the end of the day, I have my little plan in my head. However, you may come to the session today with some ideas yourself. So I do want to start today's session and just get a bit of an idea from you. What would you like to get out of this hour? Where do you see the focus helping you? So if you can just type those into the chat box, the question box, that would be fantastic. Sorry, the chat box, that would be fantastic. So just type some of your objectives. Consider, do you want to focus on more the work-based or the group-based? Do you have any specific areas that you're struggling with? If it's nothing, over to you, Helen, then type that up. That's fine too. So Sarah? Okay, so Sarah's asking here, sorry, I'm new to this course. That's fine, welcome. And I think a little bit ahead of myself, nothing wrong with that, because you just started study period 1, and this is for study period 2. That is correct. I think I signed up for the wrong one. Sarah, this is for study period 2. And look, that's absolutely fine. You are most welcome to stay with us today and, you know, take it on board, park it for when you're ready for study period 2. It will not hurt you at all. If you've got the time today, then please stay with us. We do run study period 1 versions of this. They run a little bit differently, but they do help you specifically with study period 1. And if you need some help finding where those sessions are, then let me know, and I can point you in the right direction. David is saying he wants to find a way to complete the assessment at home without being associated with an RTO. No problem whatsoever. I feel confident we can do that. If at the end of the session, David, that still hasn't quite hit the mark for you, then please let me know. So Sarah saying, okay, great, thank you. I'm hoping that means you'll stay with us, Sarah. Yes, excellent. Well, considering you're new to this, you're doing very well in the chat and answering questions, so I'm impressed. So I'm just looking, bear with me a second, guys. Okay, no other specific objectives coming up at the moment. So the only one that I've got at the moment is a way of doing this assessment at home without being associated with an RTO. Okay, so I'll make sure that we can answer that for David and anybody else. If, as I move on, anybody else in the group wishes to throw in an objective, then please fire away. All right, so the purpose of this presentation, I've already sort of said it, understanding study period 2. So as you can see there, we've actually got 2 units of competency, which we've already highlighted. We've got workplace learning, and there's the code and the name. So plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. Oh, I've got those the wrong way around. Sorry, typo. So workplace learning is actually this little baby here. Plan, organise and facilitate learning in the workplace. My apologies, everybody. And group-based training is plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. Okay, so there we go, a little bit of a typo to start off. Now, there's actually very clear differences between these 2 units. Okay, the way I like people to see it is that when you gain your certificate for in training and assessment, you walk away with a whole basket of ways to help your staff or anybody learn. Now, they can learn through so many different ways. They can do the way that we are always familiar with, which is go on a training course or do online learning in this case, but they normally, typically old-fashioned way, go on a training course. And train the trainer in the past has always been focused on how do you stand up in front of a class and deliver a training session, whether that be for 1 hour, 1 day, 5 days, however long. That's what this group-based training is about. How you plan, organise and deliver group-based learning. So that's the one that most people are really quite familiar with. The other one, the workplace learning, how we plan, organise and facilitate learning in the workplace, is just another option. Not everybody can go on a training course and learn whatever it is they need to learn. So we need to find another way. And this is where this steps in. This is about saying, all right, let's put a plan together on how you can, whilst doing your job in the workplace, can do a number of tasks that will still help you learn. Quite often, we're learning in the workplace all the time. Everything we do, every task, every activity we do, we are learning. Our staff are learning, our teams are learning. And I know in history, in the organisations I've worked, I've had staff sit there and go, oh, I never get any training. Well, yeah, you do. You're just doing it within your job itself. So work-based learning is about putting it down on paper, all those tasks and activities that they are doing or need to do, which allows them to learn. So you've got the 2. You've got the group-based, which is how you stand up in front of a group of people and train and run a session that way. And then the work-based is about putting a plan together for a learner to follow in their workplace to help them learn. So hopefully that makes a little bit of a clear line, let's say, between those different types of learning. We're going to look at each one individually. Okay. Training as a whole, whether you're doing work-based or group-based, okay, and it says there is about conducting training, actually involves a few steps. We need to plan, organise, implement and evaluate, Okay, and it's got there, you don't have to work in an RTO to be a trainer, which is starting to link back to your question, David. So you don't have to work in RTO to be a trainer. You could also work for a company who conducts internal training, and we call that, there's a term there, enterprise trainer. Or you could also be a corporate trainer, motivational speaker, all sorts. So training comes in all of those different ways. All right. So what sort of skills do you think a trainer does actually need to have? Okay, and I'm going to throw that open to you. If you can pop those in the chat or the questions, that would be great. Just throw at me a couple of skills that you think a trainer must have, whether they're doing the group-based or the work-based training. So David's got knowledge of the subject matter and confidence to explain it, absolutely. And Sarah's saying comfortable at public speaking, knowledge of their field, great administration skills to conduct follow-up, excellent, yes. Knowledge in the subject matter does actually give us that confidence, doesn't it? If we don't have the knowledge background, then our confidence can flag a little bit. Which then adds to being comfortable at public speaking. And it's interesting in that I actually don't know how many people are actually comfortable with public speaking, but it's about being as comfortable as possible. And I like the fact that we've got in there also administration skills. So many people are unaware of what's actually involved in training. I know the amount of group sessions that I've run in the past, and people say, oh, you've got such an awesome job, which they are right. But the reason I'm saying it looks so nice to be sitting there at the front of the group and getting them doing activities, and you know, it looks like you're putting your feet up, which you're not because you're constantly on the go. So there's a whole range of skills. Let's have a look at, here's some I made earlier, hey? So definitely need communication skills. So having very, well, it could be written or verbal. Presentation skills, okay, which will add to being comfortable public speaking. And group facilitation skills, they're quite different between presentation skills and group facilitation skills. So group facilitation skills is about getting people to talk and work on something. Interpersonal skills, observation skills, so looking around the room. If you're in a group base, having a look around that room and going, okay, is anybody actually struggling here or not? Do they look happy, unhappy, whatever it might be? Literacy skills, that's going to be a lot that you're going to have to read and interpret. Organisational skills, which I think also links to that administration skills that we mentioned. Conflict resolution and negotiation, that's going to be a scary one sometimes, hey, but sometimes within the group there may be conflict. I'm not saying a big full-on fisty, but there will be conflict in there, and it's our role to manage that. And we need to be able to adapt and be flexible because things will change. So you may have a plan and that plan will not always go as we want to, okay? And I mean, we haven't actually listed there what you said there about the knowledge of the subject matter and the confidence to explain it. And I guess that's sort of wrapped up within those communication skills as well. So we definitely need all of those as we go along. Okay. I'm just going to skip over that one, but I will go to this one, the trainer roles. So like I said earlier, so many people think it looks like an easy job, and it's not easy. It's very enjoyable. I love it. Sometimes it can be quite tricky, and you've got to juggle so many balls. So as a trainer, you can take on a number of roles. You could be a coach, so you're purely directing and guiding people. You could be a mentor. So you could be, as it's got there, a career guide and a role model. So you may not be just standing up in front of them, you might be touching base with them whilst they're doing their job. And as it says here, this is where a more experienced, wiser person who assists a learner by sharing professional personal skills. So that's part of being a trainer. We then got the old lecturer style, so that's where we're giving information, so providing an oral presentation. And then you've got the facilitator type role, so it guides the learner through a series of process and content. And I like here how it's got facilitation is the process of enabling the groups to learn. So it's got when facilitating, the objective is not to take the role of the expert, rather the facilitator plans, guides and supports and encourages the group. So you're encouraging people to learn. You're not necessarily standing there like a lecturer and giving them everything. So within a training session, or whether it be work-based or group-based, you may take on this role or these different roles as we go through. So what is VET training? So for those of you who have done study period 1, and I know Sarah you haven't, but you will become familiar with this, what is VET training? Well, VET is vocational education and training and refers to the education training that focuses on delivering skills and knowledge required for specific industries. So the benefits include obtaining practical experience from work and, oh, sorry, let me go back. I got a bit click happy there, sorry. This one here, obtaining practical experience from work. I want you to remember that when we talk about work-based. That's what we want to try and do. Gaining familiarity on how workplaces operate. Again, very handy to remember for work-based. Developing employability skills and foundation skills, developing and improving interpersonal skills, allowing students to explore the potential career path they would like to pursue. That's what VET training is about. That's what I like our sessions to be based around. It's about learning job roles. It's very, very quite different to the academic world. I won't say very, very different, but quite different in that when people go to university, they are majority learning the theory behind things, whereas VET training is more about the practical side of things and really seeing how that fits into their job role. Okay, so let's move on to that first unit. Okay, I'm going to focus on workplace learning. Okay, that's what this, so good we've got here. So this is about trainers conducting training in workplaces itself. So workplace learning actually occurs in the learner's workplace. It could be an office. I like that one, a spa. I wish that was my workplace. A retail store, a sports field, a mine site. In fact, we've got all of these amazing, different, this whole wide variety of different workplaces itself. So just so I've got a bit of an idea, what are some of the workplaces you guys are in? So once again, Sarah and David, and hopefully, Ace is, seems to be able to tuning in. Magdalene, type up to me, tell me what are some of the environments, the workplaces that you are working in at the moment. And I know, David, you said that you're not in an RTO, but there might be a particular industry you want to base this on. So Sarah, hotel business development and sales, excellent. Of course, David, rail. Silly me, I completely forgot them for a moment. All right, so we've got two very different environments, and hopefully we can get another one popped up there. So hotel business development and sales, that sounds interesting, and rail itself. So we need to think about what are the type of job roles that are within those different workplaces. So let me just say, we've got nursing, that's it, that's excellent. Madeline, it's good to see you on board. So we've got nursing as well. So Sarah, just as a quick, if you can just type up for me, got hotel business development and sales. Can you just give me a couple of job roles that are within that industry? So we've got admin, front office, conference manager, operations, food manager. Excellent. That gives me a really good picture there that you could possibly base this on. All right. So workplace learning. And excuse me if I keep banging on about this, but it's this particular assessment is actually quite easy once we get the context right. So it's got workplace learning is learning that occurs in the workplace and is typically skills-based. So I'm seeing examples like nursing that could be, and excuse me if I'm getting this wrong, that could be things like doing the checks on the patients, when you do the blood pressure, etc. It could be the making of the beds. It could be injections, heaven forbid for me, or doing medications, all of those things. Registered nurse and liaison officer, there we go. It could be from the hospitality, front desk, just picking that one randomly. Sort of things, typical skills base could be greeting customers, putting information into the hotel system, all of those sort of areas. So they're work activities. What we do, we have work activities that are used as a basis for learning, and it's an ongoing process. So we've got here, this is the sort of thinking I want you to go through when you have going to start or are in the middle of doing your study period 2. Consider a new staff member who has commenced employment in your workplace and requires induction and ongoing training in order to be a competent staff member. Now, I'm not going to ask you to type that now. I want you to start thinking about that. Thinking of a new staff member is often quite a handy one to base this on. And Dave, got rail safety practices, use of PPE, etc. Excellent. Those are particularly the rail safety practices. They're brilliant ones to base this on. And what you need to start doing this is start thinking what could be some of the training needs that this particular staff member would require. So I'm just, once again, just randomly picking nursing. You sit there and you think, all right, if a new nurse comes on board, what are some of the things that they would need to learn? And you just brainstorm them down, okay? We just take some of those and jot them down on a piece of paper, okay? And then the next thing we consider is what type of activities could help them learn. So with a nurse, and I will hand that over to you guys, and anybody can answer this, okay, because we've all may have had help from a nurse in the past, but what sort of activities do you think would help a new nurse in a new hospital start to learn their job? Just chuck some ideas out there. What are some of the activities? Where things are located. Excellent, David. So with that one, we could consider having an activity where they walk with another member of staff, an experienced staff, and the activity is they show them around that ward, for example, and say, right, this is where the medications are, this is where the bandages are, and please excuse my poor knowledge of being a nurse. So yeah, that could be an activity. What other activities could you get a new nurse to do? So Sarah's got introduction to all relevant staff members and their role in the team. Yes. So another activity is, right, let's go and do a bit of a walkabout of the who's who. Okay, so both of those things, they're not on a training course, they're just things that are happening within the workplace. What if we were to say they were to do, one of their tasks would be to do the rounds on Ward 1, whatever that might be, with an experienced nurse, checking if the patients have had their medications. So it could be a medications round. And they do that with a member of staff. That's the job still being done, but it's with somebody. And then another task after that could be, when you feel they're ready, they can go and do that on their own. So these are the sort of things that we could do. One of the things that we need to be able to do work-based learning. It's got there, how would you establish a relationship with a staff member if you were to manage the workplace learning itself? So throughout the workplace learning, we need to make sure that we have a good learning relationship with this learner, so they feel comfortable to come to us and say, you know what, I'm actually struggling with this, or actually this is too easy. So what we need to be able to do, as it says, they establish the relationship, and we can do that by purely having one-on-one meetings with them. Hey, how's it going? Touching base with them. Go through their learning so far. Okay? So workplace learning, I've got there, we need to think about what some of the training needs are for a particular staff member, and we talked about maybe a new person. We then sort of have a few ideas about what activities could help them learn, and I just briefly touched on there about how you can establish a relationship. You just basically need to touch base with them. What I'd like to do, okay, is talk about, as it's got here, the individualized learning plan. And I'm going to try and get to an example here. Okay. Okay, so we've got there, what is an individual learning plan? Now, this will be in the assessment, and from memory, it's Appendix B, and we'll go to it in a moment. But all it is a document that details the steps the learner needs to follow to achieve their learning objective. So let's take that nursing example. If we said they need to go and meet certain relevant people, they need to be shown around the hospital where everything is, then we need to document that down. And it's a bit like a project plan. And I've put there, and in bold and italics and everything underlined, you don't have to be involved at every stage. With work-based learning, your role is a facilitator. Your role is to put a plan together and to make sure they turn up and do each of those activities. Okay? So as it says there, your role is to manage the steps, and it's like managing a project. So what I'm going to do, okay, can you just, would you mind saying or raising your hand to confirm that you can see in front of you, it's got learning processes, and then you've got a table underneath that. Yep, Sarah's got a hand up, David has, excellent. So I'm hoping everybody else is the same. So what I've got here to show you, this is from the assessment itself. Some of you may be familiar with it, and it's Appendix B, and it's an individualized learning plan. Okay, oh good, Magdalena, you've got it too, excellent. Individualized learning plan. So what happens is, like we just said, we need to document these activities. And excuse me if it looks like I'm jumping around, I want to focus on the main parts of this particular assessment. So yes, there's this page here. This is all kind of an introduction, cover page, name of employee, learning objectives, what the characteristics are, and we can come back to that. But I want to focus on this bit. This is the second part of that particular document, the learning processes. Now, I've put one together here, and this is for a new trainer at open colleges. So not a nurse, okay? I just said to myself, right, I know what a new trainer needs to be able to do. So phase one, the first step, which is today, I just did today's dates, at 9 a.m. for 3 hours. The required skill area is just an introduction to open colleges. What is the activity? And I've put a bit of a description in there. Initial meeting, discuss workplace learning pathway and the steps. And I've actually put here, because we don't have a box for it, and I think it's really important, is where is that going to take place? At Ruby's desk. Now in this case, Ruby's the learner. There's no assessment. Who's responsible for that? Well, I've given Angel the responsibility, and that's because Angel in this particular case is the trainer who's put this together. So the first thing that happens is they meet up together and they talk about this workplace learning and all these steps. Then on the same day at 11 a.m., oh, that's not going to work because they're together for 3 hours, so we'll change that to, we'll say 1 p.m. there. For 2 hours, Ruby's going to need to learn some company knowledge, a bit of background to open colleges. She's going to do that by completing an online induction at Ruby's desk, and Ruby's the learner. Ruby is responsible for making that happen. Okay, so Angel, in this case, who is the trainer, she's not involved at that stage. Okay, her job is to make sure all of these happen. So the next day at 9 a.m., we've organised, or Angel's organised, some systems knowledge. Ruby needs to get some understanding of the systems at open colleges, some basic navigation. So we've booked on a one-on-one training session with an open space trainer who's going to cover these areas. That's in training room 2. Bit of an assessment. Look, you don't have to have assessments at each stage, everybody. It's just how are you going to check that everything's going? There may not be a formal assessment, and that's fine. If there is, that's great too. And the trainer in that case is Jodie. So already we've got 3 different people involved in 3 different stages here. Okay? And then if we go on the 30th, we need her to get a bit of an idea of how the assessments are run, getting familiarisation with it. So Ruby is to read through the material, complete some of the activities, ask the supervisor if she needs any help. Again, that's at Ruby's desk, and she is responsible for it. And then we go on, and you've got another session on the 2nd there for 2 hours, which is a one-on-one session and a bit of a review with Angel, who, remember, is the facilitator of this work-based learning pathway. Then here, on the 4th of November, a full day, she's got to grade some assessments. This is an actual part of her job. This is like the nurse going off and doing injections. So grade assessments before uploading the results. Ruby's feedback and decision need to be checked. So what we're saying is, right, we want you to go and mark some assessments because they've got to be marked and you've got to learn that. But we don't want you to actually send the results to the students until we're 100% happy with the outcomes. And that's both Helen and Ruby in this case. So Helen is me, one of the other trainers, and I'm just going to check with Ruby that everything's okay. And again, so what the common thing here is that she's going off doing lots of different activities. That's all work-based learning is about. So it might be, David, you're talking about rail and mentioned rail safety practices and use of PPE. Okay, so rail safety practices, and excuse again for my lack of knowledge of that area, we can still follow this path, okay, where you have a bit of an introduction, but obviously not to open colleges. It could be to the company that they work with. You don't have to have company knowledge. That's just something I did, but you might think that it might be in here. Rail safety practices information, and there might be a one-on-one session in that bit there. But then we need to put some things in that, if Ruby in this case was learning rail safety practices, what jobs could we send her to go and do in the workplace? Maybe we could get her to go and conduct actual safety checks, for example. Maybe she can go and visit a number of sites with a supervisor and check those. So you can apply this. You don't have to follow it exactly the same as this one. But what I want you to take away is that this here, learning activities and recommended techniques, I don't want to see a series of sessions, of training sessions. That's not what this is about. This is where it's different to other training. This is about what task can you get the learner to do in the workplace that will help them achieve their learning goal. Now, because of the nature of the unit itself, we actually need to get evidence that you can build a relationship with this particular learner. So what we get you to do as part of the requirements, we get you to deliver one of these sessions. So let's imagine you are Jodie, okay, a one-on-one training session. So you will have to deliver one, just but one of those sessions. All of these other parts don't need to actually take place, okay? We just need to see you can put that plan together. So I'm going to throw this open to you guys. Are there any questions about the work-based learning, what I've just explained to you, that you would like me to address now? Okay, I'm not getting anything at the moment. I don't know if that's because you've got big questions you're typing up or if it's all okay. If it is all okay and you want me to move on, maybe maybe raise your hand if you're okay for me to move on. And if you don't raise your hand, then I know that you might be typing a huge question for me. Magdalena, thank you. Sarah, just raise your hand if you're okay, or David, you're okay. Okay. I'm just going to minimize that one. Actually, I would like to, before I do move on to the group-based, this appendix here, Appendix A, in this particular assessment, the way I want you to think about this is all your brainstorming, your thinking. That's all this is, all right? It's going on, okay, who's my learner, etc., 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 reasons for it. And then here, you're just typing in, so if your learner is me, okay, what's my previous experience in terms of trainers? So it could be 10 years training, 2 years at open colleges, etc., etc., etc. So job tasks and activities suitable for the working place. So this is where you start thinking, okay, what sort of jobs is she going to be doing? She's going to be marking, running sessions, excuse my typing, running sessions, both face-to-face, and online, doing messages. So you're brainstorming what the job basically is, yeah? So if there's any particular aims that the organisation want you to follow, then you'd put that in there. And then here, this is where I want you to start thinking about what sort of activities are you going to include. Okay, I'm going to do some unsupervised activities. Oh, now I get to show how bad my typing is. Unsupervised activities, a one-on-one session, it could do all sorts, marking, all sorts there. And then think about who needs to be involved in that. Well, I need trainers to give some sort of support. I need her supervisor. I need open space team. Oh, look how embarrassing this is now. Open space team, who, you know, all those sort of things. And that's what we need to put in there. So this is your brainstorming, all right? And then here, just start thinking, what sort of tasks? Give me some more meat on here. What I said, marking. What sort of marking? Oh, I can get them marking for 3 days on just the study period 1 assessments. Okay, or with the nursing, it could be, I just want them to cover Ward 1 because that's a specific area. Okay. So that's what an individualised learning plan is about, okay? Remember, your role is to manage the steps and you've then got to manage it like it's a project. So if we are all comfortable, I'm going to move on to group-based, okay? So trainers conduct training to groups of learners in a variety of places. So you've got classrooms, hired venue, training rooms, boardrooms, auditorium. There's all sorts of amazing places. What sort of places can you guys train groups of people in? What sort of setups have you got? Once again, if you can just type those up for me, it gives me a bit of an idea. Do you have training rooms? Got a lunchroom? Yep. Do you know what, David? I've actually trained many a group in lunchrooms. They can be quite interesting, can't they? Does anybody have any set training rooms? Some of us can be quite lucky and have formal training rooms to go into. Boardrooms can be quite tricky, I find, because you've got one big table and you can't move around there. So, but that's all the things that we sort of get to work with. So group-based training could be either a practical or skills-based, sorry, practical and skills-based, or it could be theoretical and knowledge-based. Now, a few moments ago, I was talking about work-based learning. That's generally skills-based. Whereas group-based, you kind of get a mix of both. All right. So there's all sorts of techniques that we can incorporate in our group-based. Okay. What sort of techniques do you think we can inject into our group training to make it interesting and to make it my words are going, to make it interactive? What sort of things can we do with that group in that room, like I say, to make it really interesting and fun and an environment where they are motivated to learn? What can we include? Throw your ideas up there. It's all gone quiet there. Shall I help you out? It's always weird when I can't actually hear you. Oh, yay, David. So first aid, expand on that a little bit more first when you say first aid. What type of activity, if you're training somebody on first aid, what sort of activities or techniques could you use in the group-based training? Yeah, bandaging hand injuries, excellent. So you can actually, within a group, a demonstration, brilliant. So yeah, within a session you can demonstrate how to bandage a hand and then get them doing it rather than you standing there talking about it. With any subject area, put some quizzes in there, get some group discussions going. And quite often we feed back to students when they're delivering training. We say, I quite often type up the words, I would have liked to have seen you ask more questions to get your learner involved. What we don't want to see, particularly in the group-based training, is you standing there in front of the group, like this lady here. I don't know what she's actually saying, how she's doing it. However, we don't want this being you and you just talking the whole time and all these people sitting around this table just listening to you for an hour. We want to see you asking questions very early on in the piece. So where you're telling them information, even though you know the answers, ask them, like I've just been doing there. You know, what sort of activities training techniques can we incorporate? Use the flipboard, the flip chart here to brainstorm their answers. Get somebody else up there doing the writing. Get these people moving around. If you do a demonstration and a practice, put them into different groups. Okay, get them moving. There could be role playings. There's whole sorts of things that you can do. I want you to look at moving away from lecturing. I want to see you moving around the room and getting the groups to move around the room. I want to see you asking questions, okay? And chunk the information down a little bit, okay? So look at lots of different ways you can make this interesting. That's what's going to get you to be, yes, to be signed off, but bigger picture than that, to be a really effective trainer. So the two assessments, and they are snapshots. Let's just look at this. So the workplace learning, and this might go back to one of your questions earlier, David. Workplace learning. It's got there in someone's workplace. Must be participative, no lecturing. ID do skills demonstration. Allow the student to practice. So do you remember when I said earlier you're going to put that individualized learning plan together? There's going to be lots of steps in there where in that particular case Ruby's going to go off and have contact with lots of different people, and she's going to do lots of tasks, lots of marking, all those sort of things. But within that, because we need to get evidence of you building a learning relationship, within that, we need you to do one of the sessions. And these sessions need to be around 20 minutes each, and it's just one-on-one. Okay, it's going to be you, the learner in there, and if you're going to need to get a third person to sit in and observe you. Okay, but all I want to see in the video is you and the learner. And it needs to be in a workplace. Now, if you're not in a workplace, then that's when we need to you need to talk to either me directly or Michelle Christie, our program manager, where we can start to get a few ideas. And the sort of things that we come up with quite often is people quite often then look to their family and friends who have a workplace, and we try and build a learning plan, individualized learning plan around that. It could be administration, whatever it might be, and you just deliver one of the sessions in their workplace. That happens quite a lot. We actually had somebody who didn't cost them anything. They used the library and they did a session. They pretended they put a learning plan together for a library assistant, and one of the sessions she delivered was in an actual library, looking up the numbers and the books and all, showing them how to stack and that sort of stuff. So we can be creative with this. The reason it needs to be in the workplace, one is because it's workplace learning, but training in the workplace is quite different in a controlled training room. And I had somebody the other day delivering their session I watched. It was in a hairdresser salon, and the noises they had to deal with, it was quite difficult for them. They had customers in there, all sorts going on. Okay. So you'll find that the workplace assessment 30064 1 and 2, you basically have to do the same for each of them, but they have to be with a different learner on a different subject. Now, the different subject thing can be just slightly different. So, for example, with my previous RTO, a lot of our clients were mining clients, and I had guys coming along who were truck drivers, and they wanted to get their Cert 4 in training assessment, and they're going, well, I only drive trucks, and some of them were able to do the sessions on different machinery, so kind of the same environment and just slightly different because it's different machinery. But for those who couldn't even do that, we discovered through conversation that the trucks, there's actually two different types of trucks, and they actually operate quite differently, so their sessions were like that. So the difference can sometimes just be slight, is what I'm trying to say. But it must be a different person. So if you're not in a workplace, see if you can call upon a friend to be a person for you, and then we can work about where you would base it on. The group one's a lot easier. So it can be conducted anywhere. Yay! So it could be a knowledge-based session or a skills-based session. As it says there, it could include lecture, demonstrations, role plays, all those things we've got listed, games, icebreakers, videos, okay. Whatever you choose to do, go back, Helen. Oh. Thank you. I'm sorry. If you choose a knowledge-based session, please, 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 please ensure you have a number of these things like group discussions, activities, simulations, and all of that. Okay? to stay away from the lecture, because you will get feedback saying, no, you cannot stand and lecture. So there are 3 assessments within that one. The first one is a 40 to 60 minute to a group of 3 or more people. And then the second one, similar, however, the same, but you've got there, it can be the same group or a different group, but the session topic must flow from session 1. So you could have your session 1 is the theory of first aid, and then your session 2 is the practical arm of it. Your third assessment is for only 20 minutes. Again, needs to be 3 or more, and it needs to be a different group to the previous one, and on a different topic, and it could be on anything. Okay, you can choose, so you can have a bunch of your friends making cocktails. Okay, but obviously keep it serious in terms of that. One thing I'd like to just share with you, the session plan. You will have to submit session plans for both of these assessments, and I want to share this, and now I know that you can see this. This is a session plan that I've used a number of times previously. Now, it's a different layout to the one that we've got in our assessment, and that's okay. You can have any layout of session plan, to be honest with you. We just give you a basic template. But what I want to share with you is the level of detail. So here, under the topics or the content, you know, we've got, let me make that a little bit bigger for you maybe. 1 minute. There we go. So I know if I pick up this session plan and I was running it for one of you and you had written it, I know that I need to do a welcome, I need to look at this, I need to do housekeeping, and it's a checklist. And I've got here some extra notes that I might need to follow. In this particular case, there's a workbook, so it's told me which pages and that I'm using these PowerPoints. Then we go into section 1, and you see how I've broken down 5, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I want 5 minutes on talking about learning outcomes for the section. I'm going to do an ice break activity. And as we get further in, things like the activity, I've given a bit of a blurb in there. This is the level of detail an experienced trainer will put in their session plan. So what you're aiming for is that someone else can pick up your session plan and run it pretty much the same way you had planned. Now, of course, they'd have their own personality, etc. on there, but they will cover the same content, and they can use the same activities as you. They might want to change those activities, but as long as they're achieving the same thing. And then we got here morning break. I mean, this particular course started at 6 a.m., but you don't have to do that. So that's the level that we're looking for. So hopefully that will help you a little bit there too. And that can be used for both the work base and the group base. So who should I train? Whoever you can get. This is for the group based. You can invite colleagues, friends, families, and we put their adults. So yeah, not your kids, please. Fellow TAE students. Ask some other companies. That's what I've done before. Going, hello, I need to run a training session. Can I do it for free as long as I can record it? If you're struggling, you need to get creative. It's got there, people love to be trained. So start asking. Ask around, who wants some training there? And what resources can I use in my training sessions? Please use as many as you can in those 60 minutes, or even in the short one for the work base. PowerPoints, handouts, all those things, videos, whiteboards, flip charts, iPads, activities, games. Let's have a variety in there. Let's make it fun. So in essence, how do I make my training sessions successful? First of all, having diverse participants, mainly having diverse participants who are engaged and inspired to learn. And it's our role as a trainer to give them that motivation to be engaged and to be inspired to learn. And it's got there, if in doubt, ask your trainers for assistance. So for work base, you can message me, Helen McMahon, and for group base, you can message Sophie Ellis because she marks those ones. Alternatively, you can message both Mohammed and or Michelle. So when you log on to Open Space, you will see all of our names there, and underneath you've got send message. Just click it on, and that will go through our open space messaging. Now, I know that is a real snapshot. We've got 2 assessments to run through in 1 hour, and there's so much to share with you. My aim was for you to at least walk away with a platform for you to either start your assessments and be pointing in the right direction, and or answer any of your questions. Now, I know David, the only one that actually said earlier on about your objectives, and that you wanted to know how you can do it in the workplace, without a workplace, finding a way to complete the assessment at home without being associated with an RTO. Hopefully I've given you some ideas there, David. If not, please let me know. You don't need to be an RTO to run work-based learning. So the RTO aspect is normally associated to study period 1, but with any of the study periods, you don't have to actually be working within an RTO. You just need to have access to the information. So David, please let me know if that has or hasn't answered your question. And to everybody else in the group, do any of you have any questions that you have for me? So David, I thought that Michelle did say there needs to be an RTO involved for one of the assessments. No, David, I'm not quite sure when she said that or what, but no, they don't need to be involved. Sarah, nothing is yet, but I'm sure there will be more when I get to study period 2. Absolutely, Sarah, please let me know if you need any help. Send me a message through the messaging system I just described if you need any help finding when the next study period 1 tutorial will be. They're absolutely fantastic, even if I say so myself. It's not just me that runs them, Michelle does as well, and people generally find them exceptionally useful. David, maybe I misinterpreted what she said, possibly, but you don't need to be within an RTO. The tricky part is that work-based learning, where the session has to be in a workplace. That's the biggest stumbling block for some of our students. It's very helpful. Thank you, Sarah. I understood this all much more than study period 1. It's very confusing, but I have a phone call with support this afternoon. That's great, Sarah. I'm glad you got that support. When you go to do your study period 1, as and when you come across specific questions, please message them to me. Study period 1, I don't know if this is good or bad news, but it's probably the hardest out of all of them, and I'm sure David and the others will concur with me on that one. And a lot of it is because you're also getting familiar not just with the VET system, but also with us at Open Colleges. So just keep asking the questions, stay in contact with us, and we'll help you 200%. David, will a volunteer work site? Yes, that is a perfect scenario, David. Yes, you can base it on that work site. Look, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and you're welcome, David. Thank you so much for joining us today, or joining me today, and thank you for adding in your little comments as we go along. We do aim to have these uploaded onto Open Space, so I'll find out when they'll be, so keep your eyes open. If you have any questions, let us know, but apart from that, I think we'll bring our study period 2 tutorial webinar to an end. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I look forward to seeing those awesome workplace assessments coming in. Take care and goodbye. You're welcome, Sarah. Bye, David. Oh, you're welcome, Magdalena. I hope that's helped and answers some of your questions.